80 to 85% of you in here are old duffers, and if you're like me, you really need to get to that men's room, so I'm not going to take too long. Al Feeney calls me up. He says, we want you to do the presenting of Beaver Dragon for us at the Hall of Fame banquet. We'd like you to keep your remarks to 5 minutes. First of all, I've never given a speech in under 45 minutes in my life. And second of all, after Billy Harmon, I know I'm cut down to about 2 now, so. You know, this banquet becomes more and more special the older we get, and I think it's why a lot of the older people in New England gather here year in and year out as we go forward. As I've gotten older, especially in the last couple of years, I've asked myself, from my own perspective, where have all these heroes gone? Where are they when they talk about what's going on in our business today? I would invite anybody that has that same question to come to this room, because this is truly where the old heroes are. And I think that for us to replicate that going forward is going to be very, very difficult based on what's happened in our society over the last 20 years. As a short track fan, I honor all of you who are past Hall of Famers and certainly congratulate all of you in the class of 2004. I've been asked to present Harmon Beaver Dragon to this class for his induction into the Hall of Fame. It's special to me because he's been a very real friend of mine for over 40 years. I met him at Catamount Stadium when it was first built in his hometown of Milton, Vermont. My meeting was memorable. I was a young 18 or 19-year-old. I was standing in the pits. Nighttime race, guy comes down the front stretch, he flips it down on the asphalt and over into turn 1. This guy, who was considerably older than me, about 2 years, I think, comes running out of the pit stand, grabs me by the arm. He says, that was a hell of a wreck. We got to go get that guy out of this thing. And out the gate we go down into the infield to try to help this guy. This is typical of Beaver. He cares about the sport, and he has for these many, many years. Beaver Dragon was always the racer that you wanted your 7-year-old to meet and get an autograph from after the race. Well, first of all, what 7-year-old wouldn't want to go meet a Beaver Dragon? And as a sidebar, incidentally, he got his name because in high school he used to work in a shop in Milton, and some old guy looked at him and said, man, he does work like a beaver, even though he did have the red hair and he did have the Opie look a little bit back then, but it was still because he worked so hard and the older generation thought of him as working like a beaver. That's just a sidebar. The real reason that dads and moms wanted to go down and have their kids get the autograph from Beaver was because you could always count on him. He had great respect for the sport and for the business before his own personal failures on the racetrack, his own disappointments, always combined with that smile and always a handshake and an autograph for the little kids. Beaver is old school, like many of you in this room. He understood all aspects of the business of short track racing. He was always constructive and always very willing to point out to a promoter, especially a young one, how to improve the facility in terms of safety, promotion, or procedures. And he was also willing to give his time, his energy, and his expertise in helping you in that cause. He was just as thoughtful and eager to let the press and the promoters know how good a race event was when it was done correctly, whether he won or lost. Beaver cared about our sport then, and he still does today. His peers and acquaintances have been the true icons of modern-day Northeast stock car racing. As a young racer, he was a leader of a group who bridged the transition between the old dirt, flathead pioneers. He also helped regionalize our sport when he was instantly successful racing that crazy modified Pinto of his against the newer legends from the old days, guys like Bugsy and Lazaro and DeCero and Shoemaker, Flemke, Cook, Donnie McTavish, Charland, and dozens more just like him. And how proud we were being up north as pretty much late model racers when they'd come to Catamount for the All-Star League. And the one guy that would stand up to him was Beaver Dragon, eager to take on any and all comers. He did that with the New Yorkers, the Canadians, and throughout New England. Over his illustrious 40-plus years of racing, he's raced modifieds, he's raced on dirt, he's raced asphalt, he'd race anything, anywhere. For over those 40 years, the kid from the little New England state of Vermont always gained respect for how he raced and how he treated the business, most importantly. Some of what made him great in our eyes, unlike many of the racers today, Beaver loved to work on his own car. It was not just like today where they take the microwave society bolt-on parts. He was under them more than not after practice sessions. He was also eager to share his knowledge with the newcomers coming up. His theory, I'd rather have them out there running right than squirrely, because when I go by them, I get a much better chance that way. He was also perhaps the greatest point racer of his time. He knew better than most when to take chances for the win and when to lift for a finish if a win wasn't in the cards that day. He was as smooth as could be on the bull rings and brutally competitive on his favorite long tracks. Nearly unbeatable at the 7/8 mile Senair Speedway in Montreal, his favorites beyond Senair were always what we northern New England thought of as the big tracks. Dover, Thompson, Stafford. That's where Beaver shined and where he liked it best. Beaver Dragon's peers in his racing, and truly his friends, were Dave Dion, Dick McCabe, Jean-Paul Cabana, Junior Hanley, Robbie Crouch, brother Bobby Dragon, Stub Fadden. Truly, these were the greatest late model heroes that we've ever produced in the Northeast, as well as dozens of promoters and officials who would all stand here and tell you of the respect they have for Beaver Dragon's talent, his loyalty, his dedication, his passion, and his 40 years of perseverance for our sport. Over the past 25 years, I've been able to travel with Beaver to 13 different states, 4 provinces, and 58 different racetracks, including tracks like Nashville, Martinsville, Milwaukee, Dover, Nazareth, Mossport, and what seems like every short track between the shores of Lake Huron and in Western Ontario, all the way to the ocean's edge in Nova Scotia. What's truly remarkable is that Beaver's wife, Jane, has not only put up with this schedule, but also traveled virtually every single mile for those 40 years to the same events. She truly deserves to also be in the Hall of Fame today. Beaver is also in that race group of special Northeast track racers who years ago, like many of you here, at young ages, followed their dreams just once to travel to Daytona and test the high banks where their heroes, Freddie Lorenzen, Bobby Isaac, Petty's, Pearsons, Allison Yarbroughs, were making history books sizzle and building foundations for the future. He went to Daytona and fulfilled that dream. Back in the old days, to win a Charlotte qualifier at your home short track meant another chance to bring fame to you as a racer, for your career, to your state, and certainly to your short track. We all went, not as a promoter and as officials, but we all used to go to that fall classic in Charlotte just to watch one of our own race the legendary Charlotte Motor Speedway. It was Beaver Dragon who got us there back in those days. Today, you can still see Beaver, his daughter Michelle, and certainly wife Jane in the pits at most ACT late model races. Now it's to support the championship efforts of his son Brent as he carries the Dragon family tradition of winning races, championships, and respect around to Northeast late model tracks. Beaver still gives back to the sport he loves, and we're all better having seen him and still able to associate with him. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you for your induction his induction into the 2004 Hall of Fame, Vermont's native son and champion, Beaver Dragon.
There's so many nice people here that I used to race with throughout my racing career that I haven't seen for so long. I just cannot believe how many race car drivers and owners and pit crew that are here today that I just haven't seen these people forever. And I guess we don't get out of Vermont very often. We better be coming south, I guess, to see these people. But I enjoy being here, and I wish I could still say that I was on the racetrack, but it's not in the cards, so I'll just watch my son and other people like that. But anyways, I was surprised to get a call from Doug Farrow, and he told me that I was going to be one of the 7 people to be inducted into the Near Hall of Fame this year. And I guess I never thought that I would be, inducted. I just had that in my mind that this probably ain't never going to happen, but it did. But I'm sure glad to be, along with the names such as Bugsy Stevens, Charlie Jazombach, Lenny Boyle, Leo Clary, Rennie Charland, S.J. Avanchin, people like that, that I've known and raced with somewheres in my career. And these guys back when I was racing they were my idols, and I looked up to these people, and I wanted to be just like them, and well, here I am. I have raced, of course, against some of them, and one night, I can remember a show sticks out. This was back at Catamount Stadium in Milton. They had what they called the All-Star League, and every week, the best modified drivers in the country were there, and you get Jerry Cook, Bugsy, Pete Hamilton, Don McTavish, Richie Evans. That's just to name a few. And back then, I was driving a coupe. I had a '39 Chevy coupe, and it was called a sportsman car at the time. And it didn't have a big engine like them fellas had. I had only a 283 Chevrolet engine in my car, and they would let us run against the big name cars, but they would always let us start up front. Well, that night we started up front, and I beat them all. And I remember, I think Bugsy was the one that was right behind me for quite a while, and he never did beat me, and that was like me winning the Daytona 500. That was one of the biggest of my career. I had fun racing in the 40 plus years of my career. I had some real good car owners that I drove for, and we won some races. We won some championships along the way. I would like to thank all the car owners and pit crews that helped me get to where I am today. There are too many owners and pit crews to mention. I would forget somebody if I tried naming all of them, so I will just say thank you to all the people, and they know who they are. Also, I would like to say thank you to my family. My daughter, Michelle, Brent, my son, who is now into racing on the ACT tour, and his wife, June. And then there's my brother, Bobby, who I've raced against many times and had a lot of fun. Also, there were times when it wasn't so much fun. Bobby and I would race harder against each other, I think, than we did against the whole rest of the field, sometimes resulting in over the bank or in the fence. But next week, it would be another race, and all would be forgotten. Then there's my wife, Jane, who has been with me to just about every race I've been to. She would not miss a race today, as long as Brent was racing, and neither would I. I guess a couple of my favorite times were when I won the 79 and 80 NASCAR North Championships. I was driving a car for Quint Beauvert out of Littleton, New Hampshire. And them 2 years, we won the championships, and we did pretty well. I also remember winning 10 races one summer at Airborne Speedway in Plattsburgh, New York. And that was quite a feat for me. I can also remember racing for Tom Curley one summer when we ran 77 races in one summer. And some of you guys ought to try that and try and hold a job besides. We'd race 5 nights a week. We'd start on Wednesdays and end up on Sunday nights. We'd race in Canada, Vermont, New York, wherever the tour took us. And we really had a lot of fun doing this, but it was kind of hard. But we made it, we did it, and we had a real good time. Then, maybe some of you probably read part of the story in the brochure, but my experience going to Daytona. Of course, everybody dreams of going and racing at Daytona. Well, Bob Bear, I'm getting ahead of myself. I got my chance in '74. Back in '73, I was the track champion, and anybody that was a track champion for NASCAR was guaranteed a start at Daytona for the Permatex 300 if you could qualify at 150 miles per hour. Well, Bob Bear called me up, and he said, would you like to go to Daytona? I said, you're a track champion. And he said, would you like to go to Daytona? And I said, you know what the answer is? Of course, I'd like to go to Daytona. I don't have a car. He said, well, we do. And we agreed that we would go to Daytona and see what we could do. Well, my car owner from home and I got on this plane, and we flew to Daytona to meet the Bears. There was Bob and Dick in the pits with the car and stuff. And I meet them people, and of course on the way down on the airplane, my car owner and I, we had a few beers. And so, nothing, we didn't get intoxicated or nothing, but anyways, we get to Daytona, and first thing in order is you have to go, before you go on the racetrack, I had to go to the infield care center and have a physical. Well, I went for my physical, and I passed everything except the blood pressure. And it was because of the few bottles of beer that I'd had. So the doctor tells me, he said, I can't let you go on the racetrack today. He said, you're going to miss today's practice. And he said, I'll give you some pills. You come back, tomorrow morning, take these pills, don't drink anymore, come back tomorrow morning, and you'll be fine. So I did what he said, went back the next day, I was fine, but I did miss that day of practice. So we went out and we practiced, and to run, 150 miles per hour, that's not too much of a feat at Daytona, but I'd never seen a racetrack that big, biggest I'd seen was a half mile at Plattsburgh, New York, and a quarter mile at Barrie, Vermont. Long ways from them two places. Anyways, we got there and we went on to the racetrack, and I remember qualifying at 163 the first time out, but I was having problems. I could not make my foot stay down in the corner. It would come up. It seemed like we were going way too fast. We ain't never going to make this corner. But so, anyways, we kept practicing, and of course, in between practice, after practice and stuff, I'd have to go for a rookie orientation with in this building, and Benny Parsons happened to be the person that was giving this, and he told us the things to look for, what to do if you see this happening, what to do if whatever, different things. And finally, he got all through, and he said, "Anybody got any questions?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I got a problem." I said, "I know there's fellas out here that are holding their cars right to the floor all the way around, and I just can't make my foot stay down in that corner. It lifts a little bit, and I know I'm losing time." So he said, "Well, I don't see where that's a problem." He said, "We got some Winston Cup guys that can't do that." But he said, "I'll tell you one thing." He said, I'll bet you that during the race, once you get in the race, get settled down a little bit, that if you don't do it before, you will try it during the race, and if you make it, it'll be fine." Well, I started 40th. I remember starting 40th in that race, and I don't remember how many laps it was before I finally decided I've got to do something. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not losing much ground, but I'm not going anywhere either. So I said, there's either going to be a hell of a crash or I'm going to make it, one or the other. Well, I held it down, and it was no different than what I'd been doing all, 2-3 days. And make a long story short, we ended up finishing that race in the top. It was either 15th or 19th for the 300-mile race. And Bobby Allison won the show, and that was one of the highlights of my career, and it was fun doing it. But of course, I just wish I could start over, but I can't. So I'll go on and go with Brent and watch him race, and also my brother Bobby. I would like to stay involved in racing, of course, with ACT if I can, because that's where my son races, and that's where all my friends are that I've raced with all my life. And well, I guess I've talked long enough, so I'll say thank you again to all the people that make NEAR such a great organization, and everybody that helped me get throughout my career. Thank you.